Well, hello again, everybody. It's Christmas in March here in Brandon, Manitoba. As you can see, that shock looks a lot different than this shock. So I'll try not to ramble on, but it's pretty cool situation when social media actually works for good instead of spreading propaganda and hate mongering and bullying teenagers online and that sort of thing. So I'll get to the point. So I posted my last video, I think it was not much more than a week ago, about where I was at with the frame, and then you know, I'd tracked down some more parts from Japan. I'll talk about that fuel tank there, but that's from Oregon. And believe it or not, even though I was going to spend probably about just north of $600 on a brand new YKK shock, which is a mid-level shock, has some adjustability, better quality than that, considering that is 25 years old. A guy out of the blue made some comments about my, I think it was either a Facebook post or a YouTube post or both, but he lives in Beausejour, Manitoba, all of 2 hours from me. And sure enough, including or buried somewhere in his man cave of motorcycles that I will need to go and take a look at and drool over, he had this. What is this? This is a Fox twin clicker shock from a Ducati 900 SS. So, you know, considering that I was, you know, ready to go quite far afield to buy parts for this thing, a pretty cool part is found quite close to me, just up the road. Made a deal, got it on my doorstep a heck of a lot quicker than if I'd ordered it from Italy or England, where the YSS shocks were, for less than what I was going to pay. So it'll probably need a rebuild because Fox, I don't even think, make street bike shocks anymore. I'm not 100% sure that the one suspension place in Winnipeg does Fox shocks, but Race Tech down in California does. My buddy Wilson got his Fox for a, I think it was a 86, 87 Gixxer 750 done there, and they just thought it was neat because these things are pretty thin on the ground. Is it as up to date as a brand new Öhlins or Maxton? No, but it is triple adjustable, and it's got adjustable preload, compression, rebound, length, as you can see, remote reservoirs, so everything clears. So yeah, flippin' cool, if you ask me. Sometimes, you know, you're ready to go so far afield and someone just up the road has exactly what you're looking for. Rare, but it happens on occasion. So this is just temporary put in place. There's obviously going to be some tolerance issues between parts. So this slides in here nice. The spacer on this side does need to be shaved down a bit more to get that squared up, just because these eyelets are a bit bigger. But anyway, that'll be something to do later. I've fabricated a bracket here. So at the last video I talked about the hope that the battery can attach on this bracket and it'll still clear the tire. The more I look at it, the more I think it will work, but I do need to check to make sure that this bracket clears the float bowls on the carbs. So this area here could end up getting pretty crowded because I attached this bracket here, mounted the California Cycle Works coils. I might flip the leads around, like whether or not, you know, one goes, you know, this one could go up to that cylinder, this one could be flipped around 180 degrees and go down to the horizontal cylinder. But anyway, it's in situ and this is spaced out and this seems nice and steady. So I think if the battery can fit here, these fit here, the regulator rectifier can be bolted here, out of the way, and yeah, everything's sort of concentrated to the front part of the bike, again considering that Ducatis tend to have a bit of a rear end weight bias. I remembered that when I built one of my other projects, and if you go on my YouTube site, I think I called it the 2-valve Superbike. It was a bit of a COVID project, something I always wanted to do, but it had a 900 SSIE engine into an 848 frame with an S2R swing arm. When I built that, I used a really small lithium ion anti-gravity battery, like a tiny one, 180 cold cranking amps, intended for race only. I sent an email out to the guy I sold it to 2 years on. Is it still working? Yeah, it is. So again, lithium ion batteries are never cheap, but again, this is a lot smaller and it could probably tuck right up in here, no problem. So again, I'm not ready to put the battery on yet. As you can see, I have more stuff to do first. But yeah, it's another solution that you think about as you're going through. So I had some time last weekend and wanted to futz around. I'm not sure these engines need it. Again, Buddy Wilson had a 695 Monster. That doesn't come with the oil cooler. This one originally didn't come with an oil cooler, but of course, collecting Ducatis over the years, I have extra oil coolers. I have an ST3 one, I think. This is again a 900 SS one, but the original TTs did have an oil cooler tucked up behind the fairing, kind of mounted to the fairing stay. So, I had some time to kill. I wish I would have made this just a bit snugger on here, but I'll use some magnets if I do end up doing it. But the idea is, obviously the gauge is going to come off of here on a bracket, and then the fairing is going to, come around here, and either a slip fitting or a nut welded on there, and then this tucks right behind in the high pressure area to get a whole lot of cooling. The hoses are going to have to come through here and down, and I think on the TTs I've seen, they come off the case and up along this side and around the outside of the forks. So anyway, like I've got lots of fittings and that sort of thing. So I might continue on with this. I might not need it. It's some extra complexity, but we all know it's important to keep engines cool. But those of you who have ridden SS or Monster Ducatis, they take a while to warm up. Oftentimes, they need some time to warm up. So maybe an oil cooler is redundant. And again, I'm not racing endurance races. I'm not racing 24-hour races. I'm not going to be traveling across Canada in this. There may be some warm days at the track, but at the most, the practice sessions are 20 minutes. The races are 10 to 15. So an oil cooler is probably unnecessary, but that's what you do when it's winter in Canada and you've got an oxyacetylene torch. You play around with things. So anyway, it's always good practice to keep your hand in. So that's just temporarily. I may use it and I may not. So the real Christmas thing here, and this is getting me all happy, and the best people in the world are motorcyclists. And it's not like I got any of this stuff for free. I paid money for these parts, but finding the proper shape of tank for a TT frame, I think I'd said in my last video, like you can get them custom made. I talked to the people at Tab Classics in the UK. They seem like an awesome bunch of people. They've got, I talked to one of the gals, I think she's like one of the metal formers, but it's a company of about 3 people. I remember seeing either a video or an article in a British bike magazine. They've got a young fella, in his late 20s, who over time worked with one of their, I guess, old timers there, and I think who's since passed on. But he was gas welding aluminum, and I know nowadays people would argue that TIG welding or even decent MIG welding, it's a better technique, but I just think it's cool because that's what that is. And I've tried to gas weld aluminum, and all I've done is made terrible molten messes. I might not have the right torch. I think it's too big, but anyway, I had some time and got some parts and tried to make it happen, but I'm horrible at it. So anyway, Tab Classics make TT tanks, TGA make TT tanks. There's some fabricators in Europe that do. A guy out in Ontario, well-known Cox Fabrication, seems like a really nice guy, would make TT tanks. But a custom-made aluminum tank is not cheap, and either was this, to be quite honest. But what this is, according to the seller, a fella down in Oregon, Mike, you know who you are. He messaged me again via social media or one of the forums and said, "Hey, I got something I think you might like. It's an aluminum F1 or F3 tank. I think it's probably an F1 tank. Now, granted, it's, you know, you can see it's had some work done to it, but you know, to me, I like to see exposed welds sometimes. I'm going to strip the paint. It's going to be bare. You know, the paint looks fine, and yeah, it's Ducati red perhaps, but if you've got an aluminum tank or a carbon fiber tank, I don't understand why people would bother painting them, because maybe I'm a bit of a fanboy, but carbon fiber weave done right is beautiful, and brushed aluminum just makes my toenails curl. So that's what I plan to do. And yeah, this one isn't in pristine condition, but it came with a racing fuel cap, which that's $100 right there. This appears to be original paint, because that decal, you know, I've seen on old Ducatis. It's got a nice little hook here. The guy even threw in a rubber strap to lash that down at the front. But I'm going to have to visit my friend Brent at Ironcraft, because flip this over. When these bikes were running split Delorto carbs, this huge sump here, you know, was the low point in the tank. You had two threaded petcock fittings there, but a few guys have converted these tanks to run either with fuel injection or the stock carbs. Of course, I've got the FCRs. So the idea is that you sort of have an abbreviated sump, and so this area here becomes the sump, maybe like a nice rounded piece, and this is either cut flat or even dished out a bit to give the bell mouths some more breathing space, literally. And you can see that there's been some work done here, but I'm confident you know, Brent can smarten this up here. It'll be interesting to see what alloy he recommends, because I think what I'll do, just to save him the hassle, is I'll show this to him. I don't know if he can repurpose some of this material into making that. Maybe he can. I don't know. This curve is similar to this curve. I don't know. It might be best just to start with fresh stuff. And then the idea is that at the low point here, either just have a simple 5/16 spigot, or maybe reuse one of these. I'm thinking almost like just the spigot going straight to the carbs is simple, and then just have a dry brake fitting on the end, just using gravity feed. So, you know, he might say, oh, get 60-61 or something like that to make that happen, but I've kind of already started to rough out where the cuts might have to be, just to give it some room. So I think what I might do, again, just to save some time and hassle, is when I'm at the point when the tank is the next step, I'll maybe trim this and then go from there, or maybe just take it to him and he may want to trim it and fit it himself. Again, I don't have air tools, but yeah, it's had some work done to it. So again, you know, custom made tank, brand new. I was quoted 800-900 pounds from the UK plus shipping. You know, the guy out in Ontario, like his work is beautiful, but $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 Canadian. You know, and there would be a bit of guesswork based on frame design. So I certainly didn't pay that much for this tank. It is not in perfect shape, but it's going to go on a race bike, and maybe stuff like this you call patina. If anyone's ever looked at someone who's brought a TZ125 or 250 to the track with the aluminum tank, I guarantee there's this all over the place, because, you know, it's a race bike, it's been crashed, it needs to be repaired. So this, to me, with these larger beads, I'm wondering even if this has been gas welded. So Brent might take a look at this and you know, cut this all out here, try to get rid of the welds. But the simple work that needs to be done. I really think as well the pressure test after it's done, put 2 to 3 psi in there, make sure there's no bubbles. Bob's your uncle. Don't have to worry about rust, and it is, I'm not sure how the camera is going to work, but it weighs nothing, which again is pretty cool, because I'm dealing with maybe 50 horsepower, and it's a good reminder too for me to make sure I'm not carrying too much extra weight, even though I'm getting old. You know, oh, I spent $2,000 on a tank that saves 4 pounds, but I'm 15 pounds overweight. Like that doesn't make sense to me. But we all know with motorcycle racers, what do they say about vintage racing? Vintage racing is when the riders are fat and the tires are skinny, whereas superbike racing is when the tires are fat and the riders are skinny. Anyway, I won't quit my job for a stand-up comic. So you can see the paint started to come off here, so hopefully I can find some a good stripping chemical to get this all off, and then just get out the blue Scotch Brite and have a nice brushed finish. That'll look pretty darn cool if you ask me. So yeah, Christmas in March. The Monster rear sets have also come in. I've got them in a box. I think I explained this a bit last time, but the idea is I need to use a Monster swing arm pivot for it to hang off of, and this channel for the C-clip has to just be remachined a bit wider for this wider swing arm here. So I can't put this all together, because one of the things I'll have to do when the time comes is replace the swing arm pivot, and the swing arm pivot's on the frame, or sorry, in the engine. So to put that all together and then somehow figure out how to swap out a swing arm pivot would be a bit of a hassle. So it's going to stay on the stand for a little while longer. For the rest of today, I'm going to do a couple of things. I need to make sure that there's no interference between the float bowls of the carbs and this bracket here, so I'll do that next. And then I'm going to take the frame off, because I'm going to get rid of a couple of tabs here. I'm going to get rid of this one. There's one on the other side of the frame that I think held on a horn. I'm going to leave these for now, but I'm not sure if these are going to stay on much longer, because I'm going to use this pickup to mount the fairing. These have obviously been cut off poorly, so I'm going to take those off, and I'm going to I don't know, reinforce this or fill this in or something like that with a piece of steel and weld it in there. I'm going to I'm just worried that there's going to be a lot of moisture getting in there, so my plan is to there's a gap on the back side, as you can see. I might leave that gap, I'm not sure, but at least fill in the gap a bit, put some rust remover down the tube and sluice it around in there, and then I'm not sure if I'll fill it full of linseed oil or something like that first, or wait until I powder coat the frame. I don't know, but yeah, there's this, and I think I explained this last time. This gas hole here for the welding, just in a really inopportune spot, and I'll want to, I don't know, fill that in or do something to make sure no more moisture gets in there. Although the prairies in Manitoba are a lot drier than Japan. So yeah, you know, there's been a lot of talk about I don't know, even mental health and that sort of thing, and maybe I'm a pretty simple person because simple things make me happy, but you know, to have these two fellows reach out and help me with the project, I think I paid them fair market value for the parts. Both of them were a great deal for used parts, but it was nice to have people reach out to me and say, hey, I've got this for you. You know, here's a fair price for it, and get it shipped for me. And then, yeah, the encouragement that comes along with, because they think what I'm doing is kind of cool. So happy days right now. So I know that probably sometime during this project I'm going to come up against what seems like you know, a hurdle that I can't overcome. But you know, it's times like this where it's like, yeah, motorcycle people are cool. people who want to do what I like to do, like this, maybe kind of rare, but there are out there, and we're willing to help each other out. So call it karma, call it what you will, but happy days right now with how this is coming along. So anyway, that's it for now. Like and subscribe, and yeah, we'll do an update soon.